Hello, map makers. It's summer. I got my hat on backwards, and I'm ready to make a map. What do you say we get started? I'm thinking we'll make an island chain about the size of the British Isles, perhaps. Let's start over here. We're gonna have this kind of bay on the north side. Make it squiggly, jagged in some parts, a little rounder at other parts. And I'm going to plan ahead. I always like to leave this lower right space open so that I can draw a compass rose. Made sure to have my tools for that ready so that I'm not rooting around in my drawer midway through the video. It's always a clever choice, I believe, on my part. This right here is awfully straight, so let's give him a pointy friend here. I've got the door on, or door open, so you might hear some background noise with cars and birds. But it is hot, hot, hot. We've had the hottest summer on record, according to meteorologists. Not sure what quite to make of that, but it's something we kind of gotta live with. Coffee. Let's draw now. I think I'll put the title of the map on the side here, which will give me room to draw a friend to the north. As per usual, I'm gonna draw it as to appear that it fits right into its neighboring coastline, to give sort of the indication that this was one landmass that split apart. Thank you, tectonic plates. Now we'll draw maybe a couple extra floaties. One that fits into here. I like island chains. Usually islands like this are not just kind of standalone. I drew a map maybe a month or so ago. Coffee. Where I broke all the rules. I had lone mountains, lone islands. But in this case, I'm going to have generally islands that are going to have some friends. Maybe this one right here, I'll have a very small one that breaks out. How about we fit some into here? And this one went real far away before this one broke off. And ooh, maybe we will have a lone island. Let's get crazy. Just like that. Now, granted, this is an island, so it's not technically alone. So we didn't completely break the rules, but sometimes you will see some broken rules, some exceptions in an imperfect geographical world. one of the most notable ones is river deltas. Usually rivers, say I have a mountain range here, it's going to filter out into rivers over here, and the rivers will join. Well, in many instances on Earth, the rivers split instead. Now, there's a reason for it, of course, but it is an exception to the rule that is a pretty good example because we see it quite often. Take the Nile, the Rhine, those split instead of join. Just an example of these little anomalies that you'll find here and there. Let's see. Let's draw a smallish mountain range, but it's more going to be hills because this is not an entire continent. We have a lot of blank space here. I think I'm going to draw... let's draw the landmass that it would have connected to, maybe broke off of. So we'll call it the France, mainland Europe to our Britain here. Now, of course, this isn't a replicate of the British Isles. More of an inspiration for both size and kind of the shape. And it's a very popular and effective way of coming up with land masses. Take real-world instances. What you can actually do is go into Photoshop or a similar photo editor application. Take a map of the world or Europe or Asia and cut off bits, put them somewhere else, and look at that, you have a brand new world. Now, you don't want to just do that. You come up with something a little too inspired, that is to say, well, stolen. It isn't copyrighted, Earth. But be a little original, but also take some inspiration from the real world or even other fantasy maps. I think we'll have an island break off of the mainland here. We'll give it a little friend. And I'm going to label this continent, but I'm not going to draw any countries or cities because this map is about these isles here. So we're including this because, well, it's there. But I'm not going to label it besides saying what the mainland is called. And just for the sake of saying people can island hop, we'll draw a little space in between so they can go from there to there to there, and maybe if it were a modern world, it would have a long bridge through this to connect to this channel here. And I think that's good for islands. Let's draw some mountains. So, because we're going to say that this isle here broke off from the mainland, we need an excuse to say it did so. So let's say there's a rather hilly region going through here, and it would have continued throughout our secondary island there. So let's draw that. Now, we draw hills and mountain ranges a little differently. Mountain ranges are very jagged. I like to make them. In other cases, I'll make hills just like this, just rounded little semicircles. semi-ovals. Yes. It's gonna go through here. So pretty much just the north is going to have these hills, because the north is what dragged, say it started here, it dragged it all further north and eventually broke away. And I'll say right here. I'm gonna make it a little busier, we could say, to show where the main hills are. Now, hills are old mountains for all intents and purposes. They rose up and over time eroded and flattened out. And I think I'll shade them a little later. I want one more here. Okay. That's it for mountain slash hills. In this case it's hills, but next what I'm going to do, let's draw some cities. So, because this is a really big bay here, let's make use of that waterway. You're going to find cities with water. Without water, there is no lifeblood to settlements. It's for trade, it's for something to drink. And I'm going to draw my cities in the usual old way. And we'll call this one Basurar. Yeah. Sounds a bit like trash can in Spanish. We do. We'll do one that's kind of on the edge here. It's kind of a beach resort. Medieval fantasy beach resort. Why not? It's a tourist attraction for the mainlanders. Yeah. Vacation destination. We'll call this one Vacasio. There we go. We'll get one kind of in the middle here. Actually, I'll draw it in this bay. That would make sense geographically. Gonna give the illusion that I didn't build the city over water by just kind of filling it in and calling it the shadow. My tummies are rumbling. This happens in the morning before I eat breakfast. And this is called Strara. Let's build one in the hills. This is a valley here. It's got all kinds of fertile land, natural mining resources, and of course we'll put a river through it so that we keep to our waterway rule. Everyone's got to have a source of water. We'll call it Minar. It's a bit stout. A bit shorter than the other ones. I did not do that on purpose. Yeah, well. We'll have another one here. What do you say we make these all individual kingdoms? I think I'll draw borders this time. That might be fun. I'll use dotted lines to show territory. And we'll draw castles and call this one Sirena. This one is what should we call this one? I'm thinking maybe a two-letter name. So I'll draw one above and call it Cressus Mon. Yeah, I like that. Do maybe two kingdoms up here in the minor island. Call it Marsa. You know, I think it would look a little too crowded if we had more than one kingdom on that island, so let's get to castles and smaller settlements. We'll have one to the north. Call it months. Kind of hard to read, that's alright. And there's a couple of villages that go along with it. I'm going to make most of the villages have a similar name to the castle. So instead of months, it'll just be Mew. Marsa. I'll call it Nars. Marsa is spelled with a C. I would spell Nars with a C as well, but then it would be Narc. Not quite what I'm going for. Okay. Minar. Let's have a fishing village. Right. We'll do Larna. fishing village, and why not have 2 fishing villages? Yeah, let's do it. And, they'll be friends. We'll call this one with a Q. Cuse. Cuse? Cuse. And we'll draw a castle here to protect them from any invaders from Strara. And this one's Lata. Its bound villages over here in a nearby valley. Call it At. That's it. They have simple names. I like to make villages have simpler names than cities. And everything in between that you can think of is a kind of follows suit. Alright. Let's have a castle here, because Bessirar and Vicasio maybe have some troubles with each other. So they're gonna want to build a couple castles in between to make sure no shenanigans happen. This one is called Lunter. It's got a village over yonder. It's called List. Bessirar has some villages of its own. This one, well, let's call it a Come. It's got a castle. There's going to be a river there that leads into that bay, the big old bay. This one will be Benter. It's got its own village here. What do we call it? Call it... how do you draw Z? That's right. Nez. Z in cursive, English cursive, is very strange looking. I mean, there are a couple letters in cursive that look absolutely nothing like its print form. Yeah, well. And it's usually pretty inconsistent, isn't it? Let's draw a castle that belongs to Strara over here. And it can be a little tricky when you have borders dictated by rivers, or other stream bodies of water, because what you'll have to do is draw a dotted line along the solid in representation of the river. Finton. Sure. Village here. Call it Let. Village here. Call it Mince. Can't forget the shadow. Boccaccio. Village here. Lula. And Sarce. And castle over here. Protect from any counter invades from Bassarar. Call it the people there are pretty cool, so we'll call him Kula. And there's probably like a forest here, we'll say. So let's make a lumber camp. We'll call it, what else? Lumber. What did I call that? Serena? Sure. Draw a castle here. Nota. This one's got a handful of villages. This one across the way. Call it Foot. And we'll give it a castle. Here we go. Call it La. It's only because my hills there were blocking where I would have put the name. How do we fix it? Give it a simple name. La. Serena has its own village. Serena City, that is. Serena proper? Yeah. Call it the car. I found the more I do these things, the less creative my names get. Well, it's not like I'm writing a book. It was for a little bit, but that hobby got a little less novel as time went on. It was a short interest, but I kind of wanted to try it. I think everybody gets to that point at some point in their lives. They kind of try that. Call it a Nell with 2 L's to be fancy. What did I call this? Cressus? Yeah, Cressus Mon. Let's get a fishing village over here. Call it Kars. Castle over here. call it Mala. Mala? Yeah. A village nearby. Let's call it Mao. Castle on the coast. Castle on the coast. Call it Coast. And we'll give it a village right there. And we'll call it Paul. Just like the name. And I think another village belongs right here. There's too much empty space. There's gonna be like a great forest kind of thing. But I wouldn't imagine it's that big. We'll call it Farna. Yep. Alright. I think that's pretty good. As far as settlements go, let's do some embellishments. Let's start with rivers. So I'm gonna have a river here that goes into Marsa. We'll say there's a lake here. Just kind of stands alone. Gives them a water source. Minar. Also stands on a lake. And it goes, filters in there. There's another one. Nez into Bentar. Way to Besserar. Alright. Serna to Nel Nota Krasusmon and Kos. I could use some more lakes, I think. Maybe one just right there. River that... What is... Yeah, that belongs to Krasusmon. We'll do a double river. Ooh, I like that. And then I think this will be kind of a marshy area. So it's going to have these tiny lakes all around it. And the settlements huddle around them. And Vacasio is right on the coast, so I'm not going to draw a tiny lake. But it's going to kind of like connect almost. It might just end there. Here's another one that goes into Vacasio. let's give it some swamp. Little pictures. So the reader knows that it's swamp. Just in case there's any confusion. Do we want pines or... I'm not sure what to call the other kind. I call them teardrop trees. Let's do both. How about on Marsa Island? We'll turn into pines. The rest we'll do teardrop trees. Like I said, that's kind of how I draw them. As far as what they look like, I haven't quite decided what tree it's supposed to represent necessarily. So I tend to call them oaks. But that's not really what an oak tree looks like, as far as I'm aware, anyway. So, this is the Great Forest. And I think I'll label everything this time. So I'm going to turn it to the side here, excuse me. The Great Forest. I hope I spelled that right. Does forest have one R or two? I think the name has two R's. Forest is just one R. Anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But I'd rather not stop the video just so I can look it up. And remember in kind of older days before the industrial era, there were a lot more trees, and by a lot I mean a lot. So pretty much this island, I mean sure we have the Great Forest here, I'm gonna make it very dense, very large, but there's a lot of trees on this island. And countries like let's see, Strara and Crassus Mon, you'll see there's no river or hills or anything separating them. We might have another forest there, just to give a reason for that separation of kingdoms. But besides the change in biome into a marshland between Vocasio and Bassarar, there's that Great Forest. I'm just going to look at it and say denser. Look at it again and say nope, denser. Very dense forest. Just so long as we don't go over the words. And the forest won't really, like, stop abruptly. It's kind of gonna just keep going. I will have some grasslands, we'll say, over here, both to give it some variety, and also it's way quicker to draw grassland. You'll see why, if you haven't watched other videos of mine, or other videos of other map drawings, tutorials, and part of what got me interested in making these videos was, first of all, there isn't a lot of map making ASMR content, as well as I wanted an excuse to show off my map drawings it's nice to make art and share it with the world. It's pretty undeniable, I'd say. When you make something, you want to share it. And I'm no exception. Sometimes it's nice to have a hobby that's just for yourself, but it's also nice to share your creations with the world. That's part of the fun of creating things, isn't it? Making stuff and showing it to either friends and family or complete strangers, in my case. Nothing wrong with that, though. Oftentimes, strangers have the most honest opinions about your works of art, and whereas sometimes friends and families won't intentionally patronize you necessarily. I don't think that's quite the right word, but will be very nice and maybe afraid to give you really honest opinions on your content. And while that's well and good, sometimes you want to improve on your craft, and that requires critique. It's kind of the unfortunate part of it. And sometimes you have to say things that may not sound very nice, but especially if someone asks for a critique. Now, I'm always welcome to suggestions, but something I found I've had to work on throughout my life is accepting critique, especially if I just do it for fun. But map making is something I rather enjoy, and as time has went on, I've become more passionate about making the art, making these videos. So if you have maybe a polite way of saying it, I do appreciate critique. I appreciate just as much suggestions on new video ideas. I want to give the illusion of smaller forests, smaller relative to the Great Forest, that is, by kind of clumping these trees together. Any amount of clumping is going to kind of look like woods. Sure, you can have standalone trees, but it's kind of going to branch off of clumps of forest. Because of valleys being very fertile, you're going to see just as many clumps of trees in your hills and mountains. Not at the top necessarily. I mean, in a hill, if you've ever seen an actual hill, I'm going to assume most of you have been outside at some point. Touch some grass, as the meme goes. You've seen that hills have a lot of trees on it. And I'm not being sarcastic here, this is just kind of stating the obvious so we're on the same page. However, the reason I'm not, take this hill, right? I'm not going to draw trees literally on top of them, because the hill then will kind of get lost among the artwork. The interesting thing about my map making I've found is that it needs to be equal parts utility and equal part beauty. And how you accomplish that is partly up to you if you make your own maps, or if you're not just watching this for the ASMR. But the way we do that is having a balance. It's a very fragile balance, I dare say. But everyone does that a different way, and people make it work different ways. That's what makes it art. There isn't one way to do things. And that's pretty cool. I certainly don't make maps exactly the way I've learned from other people how to do it. I take liberties and I take things I learned by doing, and I make my own creative process as well as my own creative signature on every single map I make. And that's what makes it really fun. Besides just drawing maps, but if you're just copying someone else's, it can still be artwork, but it's more science at that point. Not that science isn't cool, but it's very enjoyable to make art that is truly yours. I'll go back to when I was talking about going in Photoshop and taking a map of our world and shifting, an island this way or a continent that way, turn it upside down. I've seen maps where people will say, this is a Southern European inspired map, and it's, literally just a map of Italy. Now, it was very nice looking. I enjoyed looking at it, and if I was, say, in this fantasy world, it did a good job of showing me where things were. But we use that word inspired very, very loosely. There's nothing wrong with inspiration again, but take liberties. Do things that that you haven't seen before. Let's call this one, what was it? Cressus Mon. So call it Mon Forest. And let's make it nice and dense. Alright, let's keep making this forest more dense. I guess you could say, just for the sake of tutorials, I don't really consider these videos tutorials because I focus less on explaining the artwork so much as it's just kind of talking in a soft voice. But I guess you can make the differentiation between forest and woods. Like, these are woods, this is a forest. And it's all about how much I've clumped the trees together. Now, we're getting onto an hour here, just about, so I'm gonna draw little tiny grasses. That's it. And it's so much quicker than forest. Now, that should never be an easy out for being lazy. Sometimes there are grasslands, and you gotta represent that, but granted, a bit ironic that I'm doing that just to save time. Which is not necessarily a terrible reason, but don't do it because you're tired. I always like to put as much effort as I can into maps. A lot of things like that, the more work you put into it, the more satisfaction you'll get out of it. And it's, burnout is real. It's rough. It's always good to take breaks. But once you start getting complacent with art, that's when it gets boring. And not just visual arts. I'm talking music. I'm talking really, dance. Anything that can be considered a form of art. Really go for it. You're gonna be a lot happier with yourself if you find yourself putting your heart and soul into this sort of thing. But, like I said, burnout's real, take breaks. That's okay to do. But if you find yourself passionate about map making or what have you, always come back. If you really love it, you will always come back. Sometimes it takes a bit of effort after a long break to be like, ooh, do I really want to? The answer is yes. The answer is always yes. Well, maybe not always, but when it comes to map making, the answer is always yes. I truly do love making maps. I started a relatively short time ago. It's not something I've always done. I learned at a young age I rather liked maps, but I never got into making maps until a couple years ago. And considering it's the first visual art form I really took a liking to, much less was good at, was shading these hills here. It took a lot of learning. I've seen people online, map makers, very respectable artists, kind of brag a bit. Kind of that humble brag. Oh, this is my first map and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm gonna assume what they mean is it's their first time sharing a map. Maybe I'm just jealous, but sometimes jealousy in observing art is healthy, actually, because it makes you want to be like the artist that you are a little jealous of. Now, jealousy isn't always healthy, let me get that straight. But if you see a work of art and you say, wow, that's really good, I am jealous of this person's talent, that can be a driving factor for making your own art better. I, as a coffee, as a musician, would hear really talented musicians. I like to compose my own music here and there, and in doing so, sometimes what makes me excited that morning to compose something, I'll listen to music first. Listen to classical music or a really good soundtrack. I'm like, man, I wish I could compose like that. And I might not succeed in being a great composer, especially since I have very little education on the matter. But I try. And that's the first step towards being a great composer, being a great artist. To see people you admire and be a little jealous of how good they are at what they do, and say, I want to do that too. I might not be there yet, but I'll get there. If I really put my heart and soul towards it, you'll get there. Alright. As far as I can tell, well, I wanted to draw coastlines, but I wanted to draw the compass and the title first, actually. So that I don't, draw my coastline shading over the compass rose. I'm going to do 1.5 inches each way. Take the top, bring it towards the outer circle. And this is just how I do compass roses. I actually really like the look of actually, I'm not sure what they're called, like the northeast, the extra cardinal directions. I'll have to look that up, so I give a more accurate name for that. You think I would have known that by now, but hey, learning is fun. You should never not be a student. Even the greatest teachers should still be willing to learn, sometimes from their own students. Okay, let's give it a shot. Let's do, I think the way I'll do this is I'll do 1 inch, line it up evenly like. And I'm not going to draw it across, I think. That's hard to line up. Same thing on the other side. It's harder to line up than I imagined. That'll do. And something I think is also too important to remember is that even if you put all your effort into something, like I said, we all ought to. It's okay if it's not perfect. You can give your effort into something and it can still be beautiful, even if it's not perfect. I don't remember where I saw the quote, but I saw a quote. It said, "Don't strive for perfection, strive for progression." Because nobody's perfect. Everyone knows that, but not everybody believes it. That applies to morals, the choices you make every day, whether they were a good or bad choice, and you come to appreciate or regret. It also applies to, drawing maps. Would it be nice if we were perfect? Yeah, sure. Is that realistic? No. Alright. Let's do, let's do a fancy north here. I'll draw a little squiggle here. Ooh, that looks neat. Maybe I'll draw a square around it. That looks kind of cool. And finally, we're going to shade it in. Yeah, it sometimes feels like an unfortunate waste of ink, but darn does it look nice when you shade in your compass rose. And I just do the right side of all these pointy boys here. Yeah, it'll take a little bit, but yeesh doesn't make it pop. I'll give you an example. Watch. Look how okay that looks. Look how cool that looks. I always get a giggle when some children pass by outside and squeal out, "Oh, kitty in the window!" I built a shelf from scratch. It looks god awful. It is a monstrosity, but boy, do the cats love it. Anyway, let's give a title. We're gonna. What do we want to call this place? The Buhll Isles. Yeah. Perfect. I'm gonna write the word Isles first. I want it to be perfect. Actually, no, I changed that. Don't make it perfect. That goes against what I just said. You can strive for perfect, but I hope I spell this right. Is it I-S-L-E-S or I-S-L-S-E? I think it's S-E. I hope it is, or else it's going to look rather weird. I'm not sure if that's right. Isles. Oh, too late now. Call it the... the Buhll, yeah, the Buhll Isles. Not bull like, you know, bovine. It's spelled a little funny. Okay. And I'm not going to be too terribly exact with the measurements. I don't know what this is. 2 1/4. Or 1 1/4, whatever. It was going from 3 to 2 1/4. Okay. I like it. Maybe I'll draw an outline. I kind of like that idea, actually. Let's do 3 1/8, 2. There's gotta be an easier way to do this. Oop. Oop. And I come and a boop and a boop. Now this was 2 and Jesus. 2 3/8. I'll do 1/4 to 1/2. And I do 1/4 to shoot. 1/4 to... Yeah, if I'm gonna have to get creative how to fix that. That's alright. Connect them. And that looks interesting. I could fill it in a bit, I guess. We're kind of gonna improvise here. God, I messed that up. I'm getting sloppy. Yeah, that's fine. And at long last, we're actually going to do the most boring part. We'll call this one, I don't know. Fresnel. Give it some serifs. And as we wind down the video, and I do easily the most boring part of it. Some people actually like coastlines. I don't. I love maps, don't like coastlines. You just kind of outline it. But I'm gonna kind of get a little quiet here, so you can, if you're watching this for sleep, kind of drift off, or yeah, it just feels like a nice way to end the video. Some quiet time. I'll let you know when the map's finished, so you can take a look. I wanted to call this the Vacasio. Is that two N's? I hope so. Channel. Passer Bay. Stran Bay. This is the Lennon C. And over here would be the Felon Ocean. This is the Montar Ocean. Alright, I feel better now that everything's got a name. Kind of broke up the coastline outlining anyway. Gonna go around any names that exist. Cities that pop out into the water. Now I'm going to do one more with broken lines, just to give it that last final added effect. Bold coastlines. I'm going to be less picky with this one. It gives it a very nice look though. Alright. Well, map makers, we have a finished map. Good job. I'll try to see what I can do about the map falling. But I hope you had a good time watching. I hope you appreciated my project here, and I hope you have a good one. See you later.